Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Interact podcast. My name is Josh Hainum. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Interact, and I am joined by Michelle Shapiro, who is the founder at Michelle Shapiro RD, which is your company named after yourself. You've been doing this for 11 years, and you created some really cool quizzes that I was excited to chat to you about. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
It's my joy to be here, and I love Try and Tract. I have gotten so much use out of your quiz software, so I'm really actually happy to sit down and talk to you about it.
That's really great to hear. This is a perfect setup for our conversation today. So the thing that stood out to me about your quizzes in particular, and maybe you can give us some background on this, is that you approach them by asking people questions that I thought were really like prescient. Like they were nuanced, but like specific, but also I just kind of jumped out at me because I was like, these feel different. I can't exactly pinpoint it, but where did the ideas come from? Like, how did you think of like, oh, I should do a quiz around these particular questions? And then maybe you can also tell us like what those questions actually are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've done two quizzes that I think were tremendously successful. And what I've done that I think would be helpful for other people is I set up like a mini chat on Instagram. So if people comment like histamine quiz, then they'll get the quiz directly into their inbox. And I will just tell you, you'll be very happy to know the completion rate of the quizzes and the conversion is so high. And I think it's because you have a great software, obviously, but it's been really good. So my first quiz was because the population that I work with as a dietitian used to center around kind of like body positivity and weight loss at the same time. So if people want to lose weight, but still be really kind and respectful to their bodies and not engage in disordered eating. So the quiz was, is it your right time to lose weight, essentially? Instead of like, you know, something that I think I want it to be really sensitive to the fact that it's not everyone's right time to lose weight if they are going through medical illness, if they are not having a healthy relationship with food. So I tried to create the nuance in that. And I was really honest with that quiz because if people like failed, I literally was like, don't lose weight, don't sign up for my programs, like go work on these things first, basically. So that quiz was for that time. And then more recently, I've had a quiz, are you living in a highly sensitive body? Because I have a lot of clients now who are experiencing these kind of really odd symptoms, and they kind of center around this type of immune response regarding histamines. So living in a highly sensitive body means you might have a histamine issue, which I'm now gearing into another quiz, a histamine quiz that we haven't launched yet. But those were kind of targeted to support people who kind of think maybe I want to lose weight, maybe it's the right time, or people who are like, why is my body operating differently than other people?
So is that like the premise, or that's like the thing that's on the mind of your audience? Like, oh, maybe I'm thinking about losing weight. And then that's where you come in with that question that really addresses whatever they're thinking about. And then same
Yeah.
for the other one.
Yeah. And I also think weight loss can be something that can be really unsafe. So I
Mm.
want people to take it seriously when they engage in a weight loss journey. So it's in asking the questions, I'm not only getting to the root of the answer for them, but also I'm having people think, oh, there's a right and wrong time to lose weight. So I'm very selective and intentional with how I use those words because I want the questions themselves to make people think as well. It's not just
Mm.
about like funneling people in, it's about kind of creating a dialogue around the quiz as well.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's like the magic of it is, and you've obviously figured it out where it's like it gets somebody thinking, but it's interesting kind of thinking. Maybe you have a perspective on this because it's not like thinking where you're like, oh, I got to stop and think. It's like thinking that you'll maybe do later because if they stop and think, they're not
Yes.
going to finish the quiz, right?
It's planting a
So
seed kind of quiz. It's a planting
yeah,
the seed that will then be watered in the brain and sprout
yeah.
later. Yes, definitely. I think that's a lot of my content in general is people are like, huh, that's that kind of content. So when people also are, because everyone on social media, once you have enough people liking your stuff, you also have people disliking. It's people who don't have those aha moments who feel resistant towards that. Because there could be someone who sees a quiz that says it's the right time to lose weight and would say it's everyone's right time to lose weight. If they're overweight, you have to lose weight. So I think it brings up questions in people or it brings up resistance in people, but either way, it will get people thinking in some capacity.
Yeah, somebody called that mind share recently, and I was like, oh, that's a good term for that.
Yeah, that
It's like,
is. Yeah,
what percentage of somebody's mind do you occupy? Because it's so hard to get like people to come back, like they're going to get lost in the ether of all the internet stuff. But if they're thinking about you, then they're going to come back, which you can't really track that. There's no metrics of like, oh, how much is somebody thinking? Maybe there will be in the future. We'll have things on our
totally.
brains.
And that would be so exactly. We'll have some brain scan for that or something.
Right.
Yeah,
It's wild.
exactly.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Before we jump too far into like the quiz, because I'm curious
Yeah.
more like on the questions and the results, you mentioned using them with a mini chat automation. Does that mean that these are going out, like you have reels promoting them or,
Yeah, it's usually
Instagram
in.
posts?
So for the highly sensitive body, I might make a post that says like signs you may be living in a highly sensitive body, and then it'll say like comment HSB or whatever it is, and I'll send you the quiz to determine if you might be living in a highly sensitive body. And those were that quiz was killer. That was great. I don't even think I have it as an opt-in on my website, but I did at some point, and I should. Again, this is me reminding myself because they're really excellent for opt-ins as well as the ManyChat I found.
Yeah, does most of your traffic to your business come through Instagram? Is that your primary channel,
Yeah,
website? What's
I
the
am a guest on other people's podcasts. So often I have my own podcast, but I'm also a podcast guest. So a lot of my Instagram traffic comes from being a guest on like amazingly like renowned podcasts, basically.
Yeah, and so it goes podcast, comes through Instagram, and then
Comes through the quiz funnel of try
yeah.
interact and then comes into the yeah.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
tried other lead magnets, or maybe you have a mix of them currently? Like, how does that?
I've had other lead magnets like you get a freebie, maybe like a meal plan or something like that, but the quizzes do a lot better. Honestly.
Hmm.
I'm not just saying that because it's you're
Yeah.
coming, but it is true. They do. I mean, I'm much more likely to do a quiz than I am to get something from an opt-in. It's just more fun, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of passes that like duh test of like which of these would you rather do on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. It's like, well,
Exactly.
kind of tired on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. I don't know if I want to fill out a worksheet, but I'll answer a quiz. So
Exactly.
that works. Do you have like a rough guesstimate on like how much better it works? Because that's always something people ask me about.
It's hard with like an opt-in. I would say, so I will say this, if I send people to a landing page versus send people to a quiz, I'm probably not going to get their emails, obviously, if I send them to a landing page, even with an opt-in. I have to send them directly to the quiz, and that's a benefit too, because if someone's on your website, they're not necessarily going to opt in when they're on the website. In fact, most people are like X out, X out. But if they're going directly to the quiz on its own page, they're a lot more likely. I don't have any numbers for that because I don't know who's on my page and not opting in. I don't have
Right.
numbers. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So
Better.
I want to dive into the quiz content itself, because I think it's a really interesting thing that you mentioned about like planting an idea in somebody's mind, and you had kind of talked through how the questions do that. How many, like very logistically, like how many questions do you have in each of these quizzes? Or
Both of them have 10.
well, 10 questions.
Yeah, both of them have 10. Yeah.
And have you tested that like shorter, longer, or were you just like,
No.
this is how many we need to ask?
I think I just was writing them and I landed on 10 on both of them. But I think it's also easy because then the cutoffs are easier for me in ways of like percentages of which funnel they go into.
Right. Because you have it like, are you using it as a scored quiz where it's like if you score a certain number of points?
Yes.
Okay.
Like if you, and that is the honest part of the quizzes, is that if someone literally, again, it's not their right time to lose weight, they're going to get an email that says, hey, we don't think it's your right time to lose weight. Maybe if you want to look at resources in the meantime, great. Otherwise, that's pretty much the end of the funnel for them. Like, versus, and the same thing with the highly sensitive body quiz, although almost everyone who takes that quiz, like it's very high rates of people living in highly sensitive bodies because they wouldn't be interested in the quiz otherwise. I think like my husband would never take that quiz. He'd be like, I'm good. Like it depends on the person. Yeah, exactly.
No, there definitely is some like, well, not really confirmation bias. It's just like the people that are interested in that are interested in that. And it's for a reason, which is a good thing. But then also on the other one, I think it builds a lot of trust that you're telling people,
yes,
hey, no, like probably not the right time. And
100%.
That's like huge, especially in this age. I think like post all the pandemic, whatever craziness where everybody just bought everything on the internet. Now we're in a phase where it's like honesty and trust are like
Absolutely.
number one and number two. And if you don't do that, it's going to be apparent really quickly, and like you're going to get
Yeah.
ratted out, pretty instantly.
Totally agree. Yeah, exactly.
So
And I think that's what I appreciate about the quizzes in general is you can build as much into it as you want. You can be a total scam artist and use them, or you can be a legitimate person and use them too. But that's where the nuances of the question asking and the nuances of the funnel come into play.
yeah, and if you don't actually know what you're doing and you're just trying to ask questions to manipulate people, I think people can tell. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen enough of these now where it's like, yeah, you can definitely tell. Where did those questions come from, those 10 questions for each of these quizzes? Like, was it based on conversations you've had with people over the years? Was it just like, hey, if I'm going to actually make a recommendation to you, this is what I need to know? Where did it come from?
Yeah, I think both of them were just from my brain experiences that clients have had or I've had personally. I think that's what, and then determining what would I actually need to know to make this determination of, whatever the experience is. Yeah, I think it's just from my brain. I don't even think I used like ChatGPT or anything for them. I think they were from my brain, honestly.
Yeah. That's pretty common. Like, and I think the best way to do it, it's like, well, these are all the conversations that I've had, and you just kind of like make a mental note of those, and then you pull them out, and they become the questions, and people can tell. And like, obviously, if you need help with the wordsmithing and whatnot, then
Right.
ChatGPT can come in. But otherwise, it feels a little generic if you don't. Okay, so somebody goes through the 10 questions, then there's the opt-in form. What are they getting if they opt in? Like, what's the hook there?
Yeah. So no, the opt-in form for the quiz, they get the results from the quiz.
Yeah.
That's what the opt-in is equivalent to. They just get the results from the quiz. If it is the right time to lose weight, then they get resources, information, in a kind of funnel, and then they may get. I think at the end of it says like if you want these kind of services, we have them too. It depends. And if you're living in a highly sensitive body, the funnel will give, again, information about living in a highly sensitive body, and then eventually options for if you want added support, basically.
Nice. Yeah. So it just kind of delivers on the promise. I think that's like also really important for trust building. It's like, yeah, I said I was going to give you this, and then I'll give it to you.
Exactly. And also there's just free information for filling it out, and also like a result, which I think people really want too, but not just immediately, here's other stuff, but let's explain it, let's understand it. Yeah.
Right. How much information are you giving in those results when you send it to people? Like, is it really long? Is it like
The
kind of
results are
punchy?
not very long. There's information in the results and explanation. I would say they're like, I guess, moderate size. And then the following emails, I think they're packed with information and education.
Gotcha. And
Yeah,
those
so not
are
all in one email. Yeah, I think
those
there's like
following
5.
emails.
If it is the right time to lose weight, I think they get like 5 emails from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are all about like losing weight. So it's like,
Yep.
you know, somebody's
And the mindset around weight loss too, and everything like that. Yeah.
And how is that like dripped out? Like, how do you think about that in terms of like which information goes where, like in that sequence of emails?
I don't know how we developed it. This was also a long time ago. That quiz was like 2 years ago. I think when we first launched it, maybe a year ago. I don't know how we thought. I don't know how we thought about it. It's a good question. I don't know how we thought about it. I think it would be the most important information first, understanding why they took the quiz, understanding their results, and then pillars of safe weight loss. I think, and I think they leak in like every few days, but maybe like every 5 days or something. And then, I actually don't remember this because that quiz I don't use as much anymore. The highly sensitive body one is the same thing. It's every few days. I will say I developed the emails, what's written in them, but putting it into play and the timing, my like tech developer does. So I'm like, I actually don't know. It's a great question though. Yeah.
No, I think that's your off the cuff answer. I'm glad you didn't remember or didn't know, because I think that is exactly it. And like you've been doing this 11 years, so like you know intuitively, and that's pretty much what we've seen. It's like first information, like really concise, and then you drip out like the important pillars over time. And then the timing, like I think it just varies depending on everybody's business. I don't think there's a real answer to that one. So that definitely is cool. So what's this new quiz that you're working on, as much as you want to share about it?
This would be like, are histamines an issue for you, basically? Because I think this is the interesting thing about a lot of things in health, is that they require education and explanation. So people have heard the word histamine, but they don't necessarily tie that to, oh, I have dizziness, I have these symptoms. So it was hard for me to even educate on what a highly sensitive body is, because that didn't exist. There's a highly sensitive person, which is a trademark phrase by Dr. Elaine Aron, but this is a totally different thing. So it was hard to explain that to people and educate before they knew what it was. So I think that's what the point of the quiz would be, is like, do I have weird histamine symptoms or something? We actually developed one that's in there. I have to check. My web developer helped me develop it, but I don't know what the title is. And then it'll go through those symptoms so that they can start to make those connections. Because as they're doing the quiz, I want them to, as I said, think basically. Oh wait,
Hmm.
like, is that me? Does that feel like the experience I've had?
Yeah, I like the approach that you have. I don't know if you've like thought about that very explicitly, but it's like you do ask these questions that like ask people about things that are kind of on the forefront of like where the I don't know, the zeitgeist is at, and then you use that as your entry point to then educate people about it, because
Yeah.
people maybe aren't educated about it. So if you have something that's really specific about that topic, they're gonna be like, I don't even know what that is. But you're using this like question to spark the curiosity about it. Is that
Yeah.
like an explicit
Yeah, it's a
choice,
it's a
or
thing that I do. Yeah, no, it's a thing. And there's also the curiosity is definitely a word that comes up a lot. And then also like, I want to pull people into information with what they want, and then they leave with what they actually need. And what they need is probably a new way of thinking about something. So that's a tricky thing that I do. And I know that I do that without realizing it or not, is that I'm like, I'll dangle a fun little histamine carrot, but in reality, we're going to like think about the really hard things in our life and the really important things. So it's a talk about what people want, but give them what they need. Because then I'll eventually talk about things in a way that I think most other people don't talk about them.
yeah, and that's like the premise of quizzes in general, and that's like what I've always, every time I run an analysis across like the best quizzes, it does exactly that. It goes from what the audience wants to what they actually need, and
Yeah.
it's this journey that they guide themselves on, so that then they're bought in. How are you keying into what people want? Is that just from the questions that
I
people
think it's just
ask
more, I'm
you,
having
or
conversations with clients every single day. And I have also a
uh,
staff of 5 other practitioners who are talking to clients every day. And I think we
hmm,
understand. I also see on social media where the conversations are going. And I do like to get ahead of those conversations with my own opinions about them. So the second that I see something coming up recurrently, I'm like, well, people actually need to know the real information, not what they're seeing on social media. But it just so happens that these topics also have been very pressing. I'm not a person who really monitors trends very much, but if I become aware of one, because of people's experiences, like for instance, this histamine conversation is very related to long COVID.
hmm.
So that's kind of why it's come up in obviously the past 5 years, of course.
Yeah. And then how are you like, I don't know the right word, gently or thoughtfully making the like leap from, okay, now we're talking about what you want, and then we're going to switch over to talking about what you need. Like
Yeah.
how do you craft that?
Um, I'll say something that's maybe sounds a little bit controversial to what people think, but is very empathetic, because that's actually how I think about things. And
Hmm.
then that will create enough of a safe space for the curiosity for people. So you kind of, the wanting is wanting the safety, which is what I believe we can all achieve and have hope for. And then at the same time, there's something about it that's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Wait. What are you saying? What are you saying? And that curiosity is the want. I think the curiosity is the want and the safety is the need. So I think that it's in the beginning, I feel safe enough to listen to this person because she gets that I've had this experience. Because, I'm sure you've seen, Josh, and a lot of opt ins and a lot of like online, like people are very quick to jump into like, is this you? Are you this person? And to me, that's very like unsafe, because it's so marketing without the true compassion and human understanding. So I think there's I always want to say something that's a little like, what? But at the same time, like, if I'm going to be curious about this, this is a safe space to explore it. I don't know if that's a real thing or if I just explain something in a way that makes sense, but that's kind of what I do.
No, I think it does make sense. I mean, to me, because I've studied a lot of these like psychological principles. And so I guess if I reflect that back to you, you're saying like you propose like statements that do kind of catch people not off guard, but like it jumps out at them a
Yeah.
little bit. But then once they reflect on it for 1 second, they're like, oh, yeah, actually, yes. Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
And they also like, I'll say, so as an example, I did like an Instagram post the other day that's getting absolutely ripped apart, which I'm like, it's fine. You're driving people to my algorithm. It's fine. I basically, there's like a type of practitioner who's very like what I call like the evidence-based bullies. So they're like, you can't recommend lemon water because lemon water doesn't have a randomized controlled trial attached to it. So you can't recommend that. You can only recommend medication. You can only recommend things that are, so I'm very experiential with clients, especially if it's something so low risk, like adding lemons to your water or something like that. Of course, we're going to try it. So I basically started by saying, dear evidence-based bullies. And then all the evidence-based bullies were like, I hate you. You're not evidence-based because you called me a bully. And I'm like, well, but then the next part of it was, if I can't wait 50 years for a clinical trial for my clients to know if they can try lemon water. Like we have to try things now. We have to try things today if a client is suffering. So the first part is the little bit of like, oh, what does that mean? Evidence-based bullies. And then the second part is, oh, she understands and she's advocating for her clients. And this is a safe person who understands the experience that I've had and the suffering that I've had. So there could be the controversial, but I'm usually coming for practitioners. I would never come for a client, but I do also hold people to a very high standard. So there's that controversial part is always the part where people are like, what is an evidence-based bully? And then the next part is, oh, but she's talking about what she's saying is that she wants us to advocate for ourselves and try things and experiment. That's usually the layout of my thinking and the layout of what comes out on social media and probably in the quizzes as well at some point too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was kind of like picking up on with the quizzes where I was like, there's something different here. And
Yeah.
I think that explains a lot of what you're talking about. It's like you start with this semi-controversial statement that I guess that just kind of ties into like the conversation of the day.
Yeah.
But then you're quickly following that up with like, here's how that actually relates to like you, the audience. And that second part is like, it's like one of those things that you would only know if you know the person, like
Totally.
those like lie detector tests where it's like, where do we keep the key in the house? And it's like, you wouldn't know unless you actually knew the person.
100%. Yes.
It's like that.
Because it is, I've lived the experience of the same experience that my clients have lived. So yes, I don't like to do it in the same way that other people do, where you're like, is this you? That's why it's like, is it your right time to lose weight? That quiz is controversial because a lot of fitness bros and people would say it's always the right time to lose weight. And this person is pissing me off. But then when the quiz questions are like, I'm not feeling safe around food. Am I constantly thinking about food? Like, is weight loss a medical need or is it just an aesthetic need? What's the urgency around it? So those questions are already talking, the title is pissing off practitioners and the questions are giving people what they need. And again, people will see the safety in the second part of anything I say, but in the first part, they might start to think, what is that? Why would she say that? Why would she say that?
Yeah. Where do your foils come from?
What does foils mean in this context?
So like the example right there of the fitness bros, right? They
Yeah.
would be your foil.
Oh,
Where do they come from? Or where do
like
you?
my foes, you mean? Like the people who
Yeah,
are, yeah. Oh, I don't know. I mean, like in general, like these schools of thought, who
yeah,
are these
like
people? Why am I against them?
yeah.
I'm not actually, it's funny. I love being fakely against people because I have no enemies, obviously, but, it's a lot of practitioners who have dismissed their clients' individual needs. It's a lot of my clients are the people who are not just going to go to the gym, do a hard workout and feel amazing. They're people who are chronically ill. So they'll feel awful after a workout. Those are my clients. So it's people who have sickened my clients when they've paid the money are usually my foes and the people that I'm against. And they don't want to take accountability for it. Or like the person I said who's like an evidence-based bully, the person who is telling people like you have no options because you don't have a clinical trial for it. So you can't try things. You can't experiment with things in your own body and your family's bodies. That's, it's people who have harmed my clients, to be honest with you. That's usually who I'm up against, I guess. But there's I don't care if those people follow me and interact with me. I care if the people I care about do, Yeah.
And are your clients finding you? I'm guessing they're finding you after they find these other people.
Yes.
If they've already been harmed by that
This
advice.
is probably like niche to say in this context, but I think you'll understand that, I'm a functional dietitian. Back in the day, people would go to conventional medical doctors, like regular doctors, and they would find no answers in their doctor's offices. And then they would go to functional medicine doctors. And the functional medicine doctors would be like the people who could help them. It was like always the last stop on the train. Now I'm seeing people who are injured from functional medicine doctors. So there's like a new step on the train, basically. Like it used to be functional medicine was the place you went with a weird diagnosis. Nothing was working for you. And now functional medicine doctors have become a lot more conventional, unfortunately. So those are the people who come to me. So it's like you've really been through a lot of freaking practitioners by the time people come to me. We don't really take people who are like, I want to lose 5 pounds. And, it's like, you don't need to work with us. Like it's too intense of a process. Like you need, we're more for people who like really need help. That's our practice.
And are they discovering you because you're talking about these topics? Like, hey, have you been, harmed by this thing? And then they find that video because they're like looking for that type of content.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think it's usually because I'm going on podcasts and talking about my own story of injury. I'm talking about my client's experience, and no one speaks to that people don't speak to that population. And I will say a lot of practitioners are afraid to work with this population because it's really messy, because you never know what people are going to react to physically, in the interventions. You have to go really slow and be really patient and help your clients be really patient. It's the hardest work you can do. So a lot of practitioners don't want to work with the conditions that I work with. And a lot of them stop working with the conditions I work with after a while. And I'm like, I really need a doctor support on this one. But so that I think it's just me speaking into the reality of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had this question as we've been chatting, but what was the decision to do a lot of podcast guesting? Like, I'm going to do that as my strategy, or it's just what you enjoy? Like, how did that come up as like one of your main marketing?
So I had podcasts on my own, and I really enjoy speaking. To be honest with you, I just happened to, in a very cool way, a lot of my friends were like, all of us like built our followings, built our businesses kind of like at the same time as each other. And then some of them who have built businesses for longer than me, like were really successful and kind of skyrocketed during our friendship. So then they were going on a lot of podcasts, and they were like, it was just through friendship and connection. It was like, I think you should go on podcasts. And then it became a really great passion of mine. And like to travel, I've, gone to LA to podcast, Texas. Like it's really fun. Like I love obviously public speaking and interacting with people. So it's both this like beautiful thing of like, it's where my friends landed. Like a lot of us just started podcasting or we're going on health podcasts. And also it's tremendous to, like give something to someone else's audience. It's like such a gift to have that experience for me and for, I think, other people's audiences too.
Yeah, 100%. And people can see a little bit more like behind the scenes, long form, like understand who is this. And especially I would imagine in your space, like there's a lot of trust, like, especially if somebody's been through a few iterations of things not going well,
Exactly.
You gotta have a lot of trust to try again. So
absolutely. Exactly.
That makes
right.
a lot of sense. As we start to wrap up, what's your thoughts on like where you're going to take your business from here? Like 11 years in, like, are you somebody asked this question in an interview, and I'm going to repurpose it. But is your like energy and drive to do more increasing or going down as you're getting further into this?
So I haven't taken new clients in months. I have a team for that, and I am every single client that comes through our practice. I know every recommendation that comes out of my practice. I know every client's name. I know everything about them. We review every single session, me and my team. So that's been really amazing. And I love seeing clients, but I already have so many clients I see clients for years at a time. So I have a packed schedule for a long time. So it's been a joy to do that. So in that way, I'd say I'm ramping down, but then I've really been enjoying doing webinars and doing like larger education. And I just did a webinar on histamines and I had 700 people sign up in like a week's time, which was, I do not have a huge following, like, and I don't have a huge email list. Like it was an amazing, amazing thing. And I totally used Try Interact for that. And most of the people came from the ManyChat Try Interact quiz funnel, by the way. So that was amazing. And then I used, because that was the Are You Living in a Highly Sensitive Body? A lot of those people had come from that. So it was tremendously, tremendously helpful for me, honestly.
Really
so
cool.
I like larger reach with the time that I have on Earth as much as I can. So that's been my goal, is to ramp up in that category and then kind of ramp down on one-on-one, just because I have my amazing team that's been so highly trained and they're so incredible that I'd rather give through these avenues because I can maximize my time to help people.
Yeah, it's like same energy but different medium.
Totally. Exactly.
That's really
And
cool.
it's exciting, like seeing again, like the responses from these quizzes, to see the responses from these topics. And it's a really good way for me to understand what do people need right now. So I really do. I'm telling you, I love the quizzes from Try Interact, and they've been tremendously impactful in my business. So I'm really grateful for your service, and you guys are the best at it.
Thank you. That's really great to hear. Thanks for using it in such a cool way. I think, it's always, I don't do, I do like maybe one of these a week, and, we have thousands and thousands of customers. So I really pick the ones that I'm like, oh, this is different. So that's
so
very cool. That's very
Thank you
cool.
so much, Josh.
Where can people follow and, check out the Instagram and the website if they're listening and want to?
It's so easy. Michelle Shapiro RD, like registered dietitian.com. My Instagram's Michelle Shapiro RD. It's the easiest way to find me on those two avenues.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michelle. I really
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Josh. And I'll make sure